Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and delighted to have back in the studio with us today Rebecca Bender, and she's brought with her a very special guest, Olivia Henderson, and we're going to be dealing with the subject of sex trafficking. So if you've got some little ones, you may want to find something for them to do in another room. So it's a very delicate topic, but one that we need to continue to talk about. So Rebecca, good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having us
Yeah,
again.
and Olivia, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. You know, this subject is just getting more and more attention, rightfully so.
Yes.
And I'm delighted to see this. You know, in some ways, it's kind of like the abortion argument. It was there. We really weren't talking about it. Now it's front and center. Mm-hmm. And this subject has really become a great concern. And what's really interesting to me is the numbers, even in Southern Oregon, which I'm sure you can talk about a little bit, Rebecca. By the way, a website that you can go to for some great resources, RebeccaBender.org, okay? That's the website, RebeccaBender.org. Give us a little bit of an update.
Well, we've just, been honored that the Lord is continuing to expand our tent pegs, and the work that we do is, obviously, we mentor a lot of girls here in Southern Oregon, but our mentoring program has extended nationally. We've been in about 10 different states now, and we've been being asked by a variety of other countries even to mentor some of their survivors via Skype, and then help develop curriculum for safe homes all across the world, which is how we got into working with ISIS refugees. Mm-hmm.
ISIS refugees, and that's where you come in.
Yes.
Introduce Olivia and tell us about her.
Yeah, so Olivia is one of our missionaries. She was our first girl actually to go work actually in the safe home in Iraq with the refugees.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell us about it. What do you do over there?
Well, we were in a home all together where groups of refugees would come in that had escaped from ISIS sex slavery, all with such amazing escape stories. You know that God's hand is in it, it's like Mission Impossible movies. But we basically gave them first level trauma care and just loved on them, and were the hands and feet of Jesus, just serving them in any way that we could. We could not evangelize or anything like that. We did have a government official in the home keeping tabs on that, but God still did amazing things.
I find it interesting that they would let you exist as an outreach to help these girls out, mm-hmm. Which is somewhat contrary to what we would think, in that mm-hmm. this goes on so much over there that it would be allowed. I mean, it seems like almost like an oxymoron. Is that true?
Yes, but there's just such a huge need for help. There's over 5,000 girls that are currently needing a home for someone to just take care of them, that are in refugee camps or still in captivity. So the need is so big that the government is letting other countries and people groups come in and help in any way that they can.
How young?
Our youngest that we received was 10 years old.
My stars.
Yeah, all the way up to 38 years old was the oldest. Well, I was there for 3 groups, 3 different groups.
Rebecca, is there any similarities in what she's dealing with in Iraq and what you're dealing with in Southern Oregon or around the country?
I mean, it's hard because sex trafficking is heinous regardless of where and what demographic. Obviously, when we're working with first world developed, countries like America, right. Sex trafficking is going to look a little bit different. What ISIS is doing is just such pure evil that it's hard to compare that sometimes to other things that are going on. Brutal rapes of 9 and 10-year-old girls is horrific. Sex trafficking overall is horrific, but we do see a little bit of a difference between first world and third world. Men here in America that pretend to be 14-year-old girls' boyfriends and then lure them to be isolated and then force them into sex trafficking is very different than having a man plummet your village and murder your dad and your brothers and take you and force you into a forced marriage. I mean, it's very different. Complex trauma there's a huge spectrum of complex trauma. So where did the girl, in her specific individual case, where does she fall on that spectrum? And that's kind of what people who specialize in sex trafficking, that's what we work to do. We do individual case management. So we look at the trauma that's specific to each girl and help, through the Holy Spirit, for us, we help bring restoration based on her situation.
So Olivia, you're not allowed to express your faith openly, but indirectly.
Indirectly.
How does that work?
For me, it was really just being there for them and interceding for them, constantly covering them in prayers, and really almost like when Elijah was done with the prophets of Baal, and he had brought fire down from heaven, and Jezebel went out to get him afterward, and he kind of had like that meltdown, and the Lord gave him food and helped him rest. So it was basically what we were doing for those girls, just letting them rest, letting them know that they have hope again, that they have a future, and we know that God will heal them, that God has a plan for them. I have faith that I will see them in the wedding feast, but it's mainly just letting them know, like, you have a future and you have a hope.
You know, I don't think any of us understand the trauma of sex trafficking, whether it's first world or third world. But if you don't see divine intervention in healing these girls, there's very little hope for them, isn't there?
Yeah, Jesus is the only one. Tell him what you did with the boyfriend when the little girl asked you who your boyfriend was.
So we had 2 12-year-olds in the last group that I was there for and 1 10-year-old. So I kind of watched over the younger ones while the other staff helped with some of the older girls in the group. And I remember the girls kept on asking me, who's your habibi, who's your boyfriend? And I didn't know what to say, so I just said, I was like, Jesus is my boyfriend.
How'd that go over?
Bringing it in when you can. Bringing it in when you can.
Is sex trafficking a crime in Iraq?
To the Muslim community, so I was in Kurdistan, northern Iraq. There's Christians, there's Catholics.
Oh, you're in Kurdistan. Okay.
Muslims, yes. I was 1 hour.
Kurdistan would ask for help.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Although we still dealt with Iraqi government.
Right.
And we were 1 hour away from ISIS headquarters. So
1 hour drive.
1 hour drive. But
is it a crime?
It just depends. It is a crime, although there is a lot of prostitution there. Primarily what I was in a Muslim community primarily. But
because I think what I'm trying to bridge in my mind, and maybe you can help us too, Rebecca, is from what I understand, the culture for women in Islamic countries is entirely different than what it would be here in the United States. Just how women are perceived in general, which reeks with hypocrisy when it comes to equal rights and helping women, and you know, where is our government in trying to speak out to help what you do versus what's going on here. But what I'm trying to figure out in my mind is that as horrible as it is, the overall subject is, to go after a 10-year-old, and I realize it goes up from there, but we hear this quite often. I don't know if we're processing it, Olivia, in our heads. We're not processing it in our minds and hearts, that young girls are taken out of the home, and if a brother or a father tries to resist it, they're beheaded. I mean, we're not processing this evil.
No, but it's all coming from Satan. So we know that he is out to kill and destroy, and he will do that in any way that he can. So thinking of it as a sense spiritually, knowing, okay, that makes sense, like we can process that, we know that about him, but that God is yet greater, and that Jesus conquered it all on the cross, and he can heal all. So yes, it is happening. There's even younger than 10-year-olds that this is happening to, but God hears their cries. That's the thing, is he hears them. A people group who don't even call upon his name, who don't know Jesus yet, have experienced him, but they don't know him yet. So he still goes and sends his precious children to go and take care of them.
Wow.
Some of the women in Kurdistan that have been targeted are the Yazidi culture, which is their own religion, as I'm sure you probably are aware. So because they're considered devil worshippers, because they feel that God showed Satan grace when he repented from becoming prideful, that's part of their religion. And so that term Yazidi actually means devil worshiper, just because they feel that Satan was forgave and accepted back into the fold. So that's who ISIS is targeted, because out of, like you're saying, there is this caste system, both in the Muslim culture and then also for women. So they really have, Yazidis are the lowest on the Muslim caste system, and so ISIS has targeted them specifically. They do feel like in their religion that those women are their property, that they're able to be used as cattle, to be able to be sold to other men as wives, and then forced to have more children and to continue to spread their culture, which obviously we don't believe is accurate as a human rights movement.
Yeah, it doesn't even compute.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
and it is hard to process. Where are we? Where's Americans? And the Kurdish people love Americans. You know, Jimmy Carter, who you guys just gave updates on, he was one of the first presidents to help Kurdistan, and he did amazing work there.
He was, and then George Bush Sr. create the no-fly zone, which actually gave Kurdistan the chance to exist.
Right.
Let me ask you this, Olivia, before I take a break. Do you feel threatened by what you do over there? Is it dangerous work? I mean, I realize the government wants you there, but I don't think ISIS wants you there.
No, of course not. But the Lord gives you peace for it. I mean, coming back now and realizing where I was on the map compared to where they were, I was like, whoa, that didn't really hit me while I was there. But he covers you in his peace and just gives you just a revelation how sovereign he is, and that he can do anything he wants.
Wow.
You know?
All right, let me take a quick break. We're talking about sex trafficking, and folks, it's not just in Iraq. It's right up and down the I-5 corridor here in Southern Oregon, Northern California. And Rebecca is one of the great warriors of this cause. So her website is RebeccaBender.org for resources. So let me take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
We're back with Rebecca Bender and Olivia Henderson, and they are both ministers into the whole issue of sex trafficking. Rebecca Bender is from Southern Oregon, and her website is RebeccaBender.org. And Olivia Henderson here, who has just returned from Iraq, where she's dealing with sex trafficking over there, which is a whole nother level of trying to get my head around it. We were discussing between the break that the sex trade in Iraq is different than the sex trade in America. I don't know, maybe you can highlight that, Rebecca, because there they don't have it openly like we do here, so to speak.
Yeah, well, in America we have obviously the crime of prostitution, and so you're going to find predators that lure on vulnerable girls and force them into the crime of prostitution. And then we also have seen women who are pro-sex workers, so they have chosen to go into the sex industry without someone forcing them to. So you do get this controversy between the two groups, like anti-trafficking groups and pro-sex worker groups that fight for change in law. And because we find that the majority of women involved in prostitution are forced to be there. That is the majority. It's not like that in Iraq.
No.
There's no pro-sex workers in Iraq.
Okay. So how are you and Olivia working together? What are you trying to do to help her?
Yeah, so we did an event at Edgewater Youth Group a while back, and Olivia was there and heard me share my testimony. And at that time, I was working with an organization in Iraq, helping them develop their curriculum, and I trained all their missionaries that were going to be deployed. After that, they called me and said, we really need a girl that can live in the safe home for Cycle 1, which is their very first group of girls that are being brought in from refugee camps. So there's thousands of people living in refugee camps in Iraq, and out of that refugee camp staff, they're identifying the most horrific girls who have experienced the most horrific trauma, and then they're choosing them to go into this safe home that Olivia ended up being at. But that safe home was what I was helping develop curriculum, and I trained all of those missionaries for. So when they reached out to us, I asked my husband if I could go, and of course he said no. So Olivia started working for us shortly after that, and we were in the office one day, and I just said, hey, do you want to go to Iraq? And she's like, let me pray about it. And she got on fire for it, and we got her trained and ready, and she went. So.
And she's going to go back in October, and you're doing some speaking around churches. If you'd like to have them come and talk to your group, they'll do that. They're raising the funds to send you back. How long will you go back for?
Well, right now, it would be, my next step would be urban missions. So within the U.S., I would be going to safe homes, working with sex trafficked victims. So I'm looking at a 6-month internship within the U.S.
Wow. Give us an update, Rebecca, on the issue here. I think sometimes we just hear these numbers and they come in and go out, but give us some update.
Yeah, well, Oregon actually is a forerunner in the fight against sex trafficking. We have some of the best law enforcement around in our state.
Great.
Recently, we actually went to Atlanta, went to the Carter Center and worked with Jimmy Carter at the World Summit to help train law enforcement on what are some next steps in the next 5 years. Where do we want to see the anti-trafficking movement? And I was really excited to be the survivor leader on that law enforcement track. But within that group, we ended up having a ton of law enforcement from Oregon.
Wow.
And so we really are forerunners in the fight. Numbers are still here, they're still high. On average, we have on average 30 to 35 women for sale a night in Jackson and Josephine County. Portland's numbers are a lot higher. They have identified, the last research showed about 450, give or take, children identified on the foster care system that had been exploited. And that's just the numbers that you know of. Usually for every one, there's 4 or 5 girls that we just don't know of yet. So numbers are high, but Oregon is making an effort, and we're doing our part. So that's exciting. It's sad, and it's also exciting.
And Redemption Ridge coming into the picture to be a safe place.
Yeah. Redemption Ridge is doing work to open the first safe home for minors in the state of Oregon. They're making a lot of headway. We'll be doing an awareness event in September in Grants Pass with them, and just working collaboratively as we raise awareness nationally to let people know that there is a safe home in our state that's going to be able to take minors, and praying that work continues to be supported financially and resources to be able to open and bring kids.
How's this changed your life, Olivia?
In so many ways, but I think it's just really broadened my perspective on who God is and how much He loves us, like how much He just loves everyone, and that He wants us all to know Him and who our Father truly is, and that He really does send out His light out into the darkness, and that He really does want to make Himself a refuge for everyone, for all the lost and broken and the ones who follow Him. And just His love, I think, really brought the picture.
It's hard for us to understand, and Rebecca, this is perhaps where your testimony comes in, is the mental, emotional process that one goes through that's being rescued. I don't think we have any idea what that's like.
No, and you don't. It's like it's hard when we tell people that people want to help, and I think sometimes the most helpful statement can be, I don't have a clue what it's like to walk in your shoes. I don't know what it's like to be raped and beaten, but I do know that there is hope and that God can change your heart and your mind. That for me has been the best statement that an outsider has said to me, to make me feel like it's okay to know what it is like. It is okay to have gone through that and yet have someone from the outside want to help you. And I know for me personally that God radically changed my heart and my mind within moments of salvation. And we've seen that in Iraq with Olivia. Her testimonies have just aligned with my own personal story as well. We were really concerned when the Iraqi government only allowed 10 days. They took the girls from the refugee camp and gave Olivia only 10 days. And then they'd send them back to the camp and bring in another cycle of girls for another 10 days. She went through 3 cycles. And she can testify, but the Lord gave her a great word about time. When we were really nervous, we began praying, Lord, what are we going to do in 10 days for the girls that have experienced this type of brutal sexual brutality?
What did he say?
He said, Olivia, I have confined you in time, but you cannot confine me in time. He can do whatever he wants in whatever amount of time he chooses.
He's timeless.
Yeah, you saw girls change, just evolve within an hour, like going from self-harm to wanting to go and seek an education and speak for people and let them know what's going on in their lives.
And that's a double whammy because women aren't allowed to speak, but they do one-on-one, don't they?
Yes.
Yes. Doing one-on-one work.
How do you convey that God loves you when they probably question why God allowed this to happen to them? How do you bridge that one?
You see that with every victim, whether it's American or third world country. A lot of girls end up feeling, and I have felt that. I remember praying to God and saying, you know, how come that girl was given a silver spoon and I was given this broken McDonald's fork? It doesn't seem fair that I ended up having this happen to me, why other people live their lives so perfectly.
Yeah.
And all I can remember is the Lord just saying, because you were strong enough to get through. And that's all I can keep conveying to other women when I encounter them and other young girls. And they ask that, every single victim asks that very question, Mary, is why me? Why would God do this if he loves me? And usually it's because everything that the enemy intends for harm, God is going to turn around for his honor and his glory. And he knows the plans that he has for you, and they're great, and they're hopeful of hope. And we just encourage them to use that, to not let what happened to them silence them.
God doesn't waste anything, even our tears. You know, they're all inventoried, so to speak, and used. I've often said, quite often said, whatever God saves you from or brings you through, he turns around and makes you a minister to. Takes one to know one, so to speak,
Yep,
you know,
exactly.
and that's kind of what's happening here. Do you think we are making progress, say in the United States, of getting parents to be more educated in this issue? Because there are young girls out there being cool and they're texting and doing all this stuff, and they're just primed to be harvested, so to speak.
Absolutely. Prevention is going to be key to eradicating modern day slavery in America. And people don't even think that it exists. And clearly we've made a lot of headway by doing awareness events and even things like this, you know, help to contribute, making people aware that this doesn't just happen in Iraq or in Cambodia or Thailand. This is happening in our very country, in our very state, and even in our own small communities. And so bringing prevention in, I mean, we do prevention nights. We go into youth groups and churches and communities all across the U.S. I'm flying to Phoenix tomorrow to do a Date with Your Daughter night in the city of Phoenix. The mayor will be there. It's all about prevention, all about bringing your daughter to an event to teach her how to be safe, what to look for. Is that boy you're dating really what are his intentions? And just bringing prevention. I mean, that's going to be huge in stopping this issue.
When are we going to turn the table and put the crime on buying sex rather than selling it?
It's a great question, and that's actually the huge shift that the Carter Center, he took an initiative. Jimmy Carter said he's going to dedicate the rest of his life to eradicating sex trafficking in America. And so the Carter Center began that tipping point, and with Shared Hope International, that's become the focus. And that was our entire, 3-day World Summit was focusing on ending demand. Why are men not being the ones being arrested? Why are the victims being arrested? And how can we begin making that shift? And Oregon has done a great job. I know our detective here in Medford, Detective Jim Williams, he does a great job at getting girls into services, getting them resources, and going after the buyer and the trafficker. So we're making some headway, and I do see that pendulum beginning to shift. So.
Well, you're both an inspiration, Rebecca and Olivia. Good to see you, and let's stay in touch and see how it goes. You're getting ready to get back out in October. Let me just say to our viewers and listeners, if you'd like Rebecca and Olivia to come and speak at your organization, go to RebeccaBender.org, probably the best way to connect with her, and that's a great resource for you as well. An incredible thing, and it's happening right here in Southern Oregon, throughout the entire state. So we can't turn our heads and just wish it go away. We have to get involved, and prevention is the big key. So thank you both for coming in, okay?
Yeah, thank
You'll
you.
see us again real soon. All right, we'll be right back.